Well, I think at Agritech, we've kind of maybe bucked the trend of some of our other colleagues in the DHI industry, where we've actually had the opportunity to kind of grow a little bit. Our numbers are up. I showed some numbers earlier today, and I think part of the real key with that is, at least with the clientele that we work with, is cost is always a big deal, okay? And I think you need to keep your cost in line. I don't know that you always need to be the lowest cost person, okay? Because lowest cost may be the cheapest, and cheapest isn't always what they're looking for. But we're not in a world today where money means stuff to people, and it's got to be economical and it's got to be effective. And I think keeping that and stay engaged with the customer as much as possible as well. The customer needs to have a face with the company they're doing business with, and so I think it's about money. It's about staying engaged with them and making sure that the product or service that you have fits for that person. Okay, we're not trying to put a square peg in a round hole or something like that.
Yeah, so when I think about the future of the dairy industry and where my company, Lely, fits into that picture, we have to look at, or what I think about is where our companies come from. Lely is innovative. It's in their DNA. The family that has the name Lely has always been looking to design and implement solutions that make the life of farmers easier every day. Many years ago, that would have been on the forage side. For many years, their whole business was in the field implement business. It wasn't until the first milking robot version that came out in the early '90s was their introduction into the milking system. And since then, all the products and solutions that have come out are dairy barn focused, cow focused. There's a lot of emphasis within our organization about coming up with solutions that not only benefit the person, the farmer, but more so the girls in the barn, the cows. And I think that as we continue to be innovative and we look for new ways to improve life on the farm, but also think about the greater possibilities for feeding the world, I think that's where we start to see other things coming down up on the horizon, like the system that Brad mentioned earlier, our orbiter. While it's in a validation phase right now, I think that shows the commitment that Lely has to food production, food harvesting, and just sustainability and feeding the world for generations to come.
The bottom line is on all this record stuff that we have, okay? It's all an estimate, okay? And it's just how close that estimate is to actual, okay? I mean, when the tester's out in the barn, he's running through that meter, the only true way of collecting the actual is have somebody in that barn every day collecting all that milk in a bucket and put it on a certified scale, okay? I mean, that's the only real number, okay? Everything else is an estimate. And so the idea is how close is that estimate to actual? And in lieu of that, if you can have that, like I mentioned before, that transparency, this is where the records came from, okay? The algorithms comment that you had earlier, I think is right on, okay? Producers tell me, hey, anecdotally, that they believe those numbers that are coming off the Lely system as far as fat and protein is concerned, okay? I put my commercial hat on, and it may concern some people if a cow is really supposed to have a 4.3 and she has a 4.5 or something like that. But if I have my commercial hat on, I'm going to manage that cow the same doggone way, okay? I'm not going to make any changes, okay? And so, a high's a high, a low's a low, and everything's an estimate, okay? Doesn't mean we can't make progress, but let's put it in perspective.
Yeah, so at least within our organization, we look at the market trends, forecasting what the industry is going to look like. We heard earlier in John's comments, you hear the numbers, unfortunately, of attrition in the industry. So what are the farms going to look like in 15 to 20 years? How many farms are going to be left? What are the size of those farms going to be? It's hard to to think out that far and say that put a number on where AMS is going to sit there. What we do see is that whether it's small, medium, or large dairies, AMS has a role. We're proving every day that AMS can fit in any size operation. It's a solution that I think any dairy farm right now that is in the process of upgrading their milking system is giving a serious look to AMS. But as I highlighted in some of the screens, there's a lot of decision-making factors that go into that and make it right for the individual farm. What we certainly want to prevent is getting into a farm that isn't right for AMS, and so we really want to match the solution to the customer based on their goals. It's difficult to put a number on it and say exactly where it's going, but I think if you look at the trends over the 20 years that AMS has been exposed here in North America, that's going to continue to climb. I think I can't speak for the other brands and what they're forecasting and thinking, but my sense is that the competition is going to continue to be there within the AMS marketplace. I think that's healthy. I think it's important that there's multiple options for producers to choose between. It certainly benefits us to have competition in the market, and so the fact that there's going to be continuing to be multiple brands available suggests that this isn't going to go away, and it's going to be a bigger share. But we've got a long way to go here in North America. We look at the maturity in some of the other markets around the world. We're well behind, but a lot of that's just the introduction and being a little bit late to that game, where Europe has certainly seen the adoption a lot more quickly, but a lot of that's more based on some farm size, country laws, regulations that have prevented expansion in some cases, and AMS fitting into those markets a bit earlier. But yeah, I would say that's where we're going to be seeing it go is up. But here in the U.S., milk prices, market conditions, farm numbers, those are all going to have an impact, of course. Yeah, I think for one, it's just the availability was there earlier, right? So introduction of AMS happened.
So they're the only farm in the States with herd navigator. It's been in Canada since '09. Europe's had it for 15 years. And that's something that a large dairy could manage a lot of cows with minimal people, with minimal shots. It's only a matter of time till regulations come in as far as giving cows hormones, things like that the producer pushes, that the U.S. is going to have to adapt to. So technology on that, the U.S. is much more regulated. We don't have as many, we have more valves than any other country. Iodine in their milk in Europe, things like that, so that, or chemical in their milk, so they do different washes, things like that, where we're more aggressive. State to state, it's more aggressive. So technology starts in Europe. If Europe gets it, Canada gets it, and then we'll get it in 10 years. So that's usually the biggest thing that we're seeing more trend. It is adapting quicker. So we've had a robot at home for 10 years now, and when we first started, it was a phase and nobody was doing it, and now in our 10 years of doing it, I've worked with 24 unit in New Zealand, 64 in Chile, and now they're saying hundreds and 150 unit barns in the U.S. So that's the biggest thing, that it's not a little fad that's coming along, that now it actually makes sense and pencils out.
Good comment there.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, you know, I'm out in California, okay? Formerly, you know, I'm a Midwestern guy and stuff like that, though. But I remember going to a robotic session at World Dairy Expo more than 15 years ago, probably one of the first ones in the U.S. or something like that. And there was one of the California producer there, and he was the guy that put in the first robotic system. And it was, I don't know, I think it was maybe a dozen or something like that, or 16, whatever. And I remember having some Canadians come through for the big World Ag Expo we have out there, and they asked me to speak about testing large herds, okay? And then they stopped at this installation, and he looked at me and he says, Bill, he says, robots work. This one's gonna fail. And sure enough, but within 2 years, there's lawsuits flying around and all that kind of stuff. And the conventional wisdom in California today is that experience set robots back at least 10 years in California. You know, the very first one came in and was a bust, okay? And everybody seemed to know about it. But now, with all the factors that are being cited here, especially labor, I mean, whether it's the immigration, whether it's minimum wage, I mean, you know, we're at $13 now an hour in minimum wage, and like the guys I talk to out there can't hire a guy for 13 because he's going to be going down the road for something more, and it's just frustrating, you know. So they see that as an opportunity, although we still don't have very many installed out there at this point in time. I was kind of a little bit surprised on your map because I thought maybe Tillamook would show up. That area seems like it's Oregon. Seems like there's quite a few boxes going in there as well. So. But yeah, so that's. But I gotta say, I think your comments about. I think there's more money in the Canadian market, dairy industry, and they get paid more for their milk. So I think there's maybe a little bit more money to go around, and I don't think this is any real, gee whiz, startling revelation. But if people got money, they spend money, and when they don't have money, yeah, they got to think about when they spend their money, right? So I think that's. I don't know. Maybe I'm way off base on that one, but that's my theory.
And maybe just add one comment too, just when we think about our market, how we look at North America as one market, Canada, the U.S. So everything we do is across that line from a brand standpoint. But we even see the differences between Canada and the U.S. on technology or regulations. One of the big things from our standpoint that was what we consider a win for AMS was the somatic cell counter. For us, just across the border to the north, that was never a problem. Most of the boxes up there have a somatic cell counter on them, but only until the last year or so have we been able to implement those on our milking robots. So things like that are where you see progress starting to come, and a lot of that is unfortunately just regulations. It wasn't that long ago either that some states, like Bill talked about California, just some states were hesitant to approve or let milking robots come in, and now it's my understanding that with the recent PMO, milking robots are accepted in every state. Doesn't mean they're there, but the opportunity exists now for milking robots to come into any state, and with the proper steps being taken by the manufacturers, there shouldn't be any roadblocks to getting those implemented. That wasn't always the case.
I'm not the final decision maker on that, but that has come up quite often, and I would say that's certainly something that will be considered here before too long. We get that a lot from the reps, why isn't it included and that sort of thing. And I think it's safe to say, if I could speak for us a little bit, I think as we designed this program, we kind of wanted to walk before we ran. We didn't want to put everything in there, even the production records and the awards and stuff like that. We were very cognizant of the fact that this could be criticized, this could be, just got to kind of play the politics and stuff also, right? And I think it was a good thing that we didn't jump too fast with it. But I think as time goes on, it's an evolution. It's not stagnant. It's going to continue to evolve, and I think Holstein COMPLETE would certainly be one of those considerations. I think the key benefit is greater accuracy on the reports, the accuracy of the data. I think the ease of it and the lower cost.
Well, first and foremost, if they haven't done so, it would definitely be to visit other robot farms. I know there are some farms that have purchased robots, installed robots, and said that they never toured. They just made the decision. But I always highly advise people to make sure that they've gone and done their homework. Look at different barn designs. Ask questions of the other farmers. I know. When I look at our customer base, they're generally very willing to host prospective AMS farms, so that they can come in and learn from them. What would they do different, right? That's always one of the popular questions of a robot farmer. you know, it sounds like everything's going really well here, but what, if you could do something different, what would you do? And, you know, and just take those learnings back to their own system as they start to draw up plans for their barn, whether it's new or retrofit. There's a lot to be learned from there. So that would be probably my number one piece of advice for somebody that's on the fence. If they have done that, I think it comes back to trying to understand what at the end of the day, what their goals are as a farmer. You know, what do they hope to get out of the next 5 to 10 years of their farm, or even longer term, and help them see if there's a way that AMS is going to fill some holes in their ability to reach those goals.